Good evening. At this time, we'll call to order the meeting, January 13th, 2014 meeting of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission. We'll call it to order. If y'all would stand with us, please. Commissioner Jim Averwater will lead us in our prayer and our pledge. Jim.
Heavenly Father, we ask you to watch over our meeting this evening. Give us thoughtful questions and discussion tonight. We thank you for this opportunity to live another day in this wonderful place. We ask you especially to watch over our first responders, our soldiers serving overseas, and especially watch out for the families of those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our nation so that they may be well protected. In Jesus' name we pray. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Call the roll, Gail.
Rhonda Allen. Here. Jim Averwater. Here. Veronica Buchanan. Here. Will Jordan. Here. Mike Cush. Craig Lynch. Chip Pinion. Here. Pettis Reed. Steve Sandlin. Here. Mike Vaught. Jeff Phillips.
Present.
Have a quorum.
Thank you, Gail. Approval of the October 28, 2013 meetings, that's revised. November the 18th, 2013 meeting, and December the 9th, 2013 meeting. Call on our Vice Chair, Craig Lynch.
Mr. Chairman, I do make a motion to approve the October 28th, November 18th, December 9th.
Thank you. Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That motion carries. Thank you. Items withdrawn or deferred, Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. There is one item on your agenda that has been deferred at the request of the applicant. That would be item C, Jamie Reed for Park Trust Development, LLC on Thompson Road. This is for a planned development segment to the Pinnacle Hills subdivision. They still need to have a neighborhood meeting out there, and they're in the process of planning that right now. We just recommended that since they hadn't had that yet, that they should just defer action, or just defer it at this meeting, and then bring it up after they've had their neighborhood meeting. So that's what they have done.
Very good, thank you. Item 6A, these are our zoning requests and public hearings. Once again, Demetria Patel. The item number is 13-A019. The location is 118 Crescent Road. County Commissioner is Gary Farley. The size of the site is approximately 10 acres. Tax map 149. Parcel is 33.0. Existing zoning is RM, residential medium density. Proposed zoning is CS, commercial services. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Planning Commission members will recall that at the December 9th, 2013 meeting, this item was brought up for a public hearing. You'll also recall that there were a number of folks that spoke, had some concerns about traffic in the area as well as drainage. We'll have some more comments on that as the meeting progresses. After the public hearing, the Planning Commission asked the applicant to basically split the parcel in half, if you will. Roughly half it would be rezoned to the commercial if they'd be willing to do that, and the other half would just be zoned RM as it currently is today. It seemed that the commission at that time seemed a little more comfortable with maybe just doing a portion of it, the portion where the proposed convenience market and retail area was going to be, and then maybe after a track record was established for a certain amount of time, then they could come back and ask for the balance of the property at some point in the future. The applicants have submitted some revised materials that were included on your desks tonight. We didn't have them when they went out for the agendas. When you look at the maps that are on your table, I will point out that we had a meeting with the engineer and the applicant today. The area there where it shows the proposed mini storage facilities is actually supposed to be on the part that's labeled track 1. That area between where the convenience market and the track 1 are going to be is actually going to be used for soils area and that kind of thing. So that was something that needed to be taken care of on this, but I just told them I would tell you at the meeting because we'd already made the copies and everything. So just for your awareness on that, just to kind of give you just a re-overview again, this is the property in question. Just kind of go through the pictures again, looking down 231. looking across the street. This is looking back up going north toward Murfreesboro City proper. This is looking on the property in question. That's looking right at Crescent Road. And these shots here are from Crescent Road. That's the existing house, and you can see some of the accessory structures, barn and everything to the left. Looking down Crescent Road, that'd be to the west, and looking across the street, and looking back toward 231. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I believe Mr. Hill also has some comments to make regarding the drainage of the property.
Last month, when we looked at this request, we had talked about, Mr. Radabaugh had talked about some of the drainage in the area, and so you guys had asked for me to just kind of maybe do a little report on the drainage, and so I've got a few maps up there. Doug, will you put that first one up?
Yes, sir. Was it the map one? Is that the one you wanted first? Okay.
This, just to kind of give you an overall idea of what the drainage does out there. This water drains from east to west, and there's a pipe under 231 right in here. There's actually two pipes under 231 on this property. There's a 24-inch pipe up here that drains onto this property. It drains some property from the east. And there's also a drain right here that catches the water from the road. And so that drainage comes onto this property. And like we talked last month, this property has historically kind of been low. And apparently before the 4-lane highway was there, when it was just a 2-lane road, there was a sinkhole there near the road. I think a lot of this drainage went into that sinkhole. Then as the state widened the road, apparently they covered up that sinkhole and stopped water from going down in there. And so the water just kind of historically stood on this property, and as the water got larger in volume, it would even, and it still does, it gets over Crescent Road. And then as it eventually fills up this whole area here, it travels across the existing driveway through here to a pond that's in this area right here that you can see those contours for. And then once it leaves there, it goes into, here's the property line for Mr. Radabaugh. It's kind of a sinkhole in this wooded area here, a low depression. Water goes into there, and as that fills up, then this area, Mr. Radabaugh's front yard, just kind of fills up. And then eventually that water starts going north and goes this way. Eventually goes pretty good ways through Mr. Woodruff's property back until it finally hits Stones River. That being said, kind of like we talked before, this water is all going from here to the west, and so any development they do on this property, at the site plan phase, and I talked with the engineer today, they're open to doing what they have to do from a detention requirements to try to help the situation. And so from a drainage situation, I think, and after talking with Mr. Radabaugh, and I hope he'll speak later and he can maybe tell this, but from a drainage standpoint, I think we're all on the same page, and the county's going to look at maybe, since we have water over the road out there, we may do something to see if we can help the overall situation some, aside from the area we're looking at right now. So as far as the drainage goes, and if there's anything I left out or you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. But it's like I said, it's been historically low, and it eventually goes to the west. But I think it's something that can be managed.
Any questions, comments for staff?
Eric, from 231 to where the bridge is down by the Woodruff house, is that ditch, is it cleaned out, or would that
No,
help?
it's not. Doug, will you show that next? That one that zoomed out a little farther? Yeah. The bridge that you're talking about is right here, okay? And so it would be great if this roadside ditch was capable of taking it all the way down, but it's not. There's a hill right here in this area that prevents that water from going that way. So the natural drainage is for that water to kind of veer off and go straight across. And this is kind of the big scale. That's the river back there. So it's never been allowed to do that. Part of the problem out here is this water coming from the south. As it comes toward, there's not much roadside ditch along this area, and so that water just kind of under heavy rainfall will overtop the road. And that's something that I talked with Mr. Radabaugh. We're going to look at as engineering staff and the highway department, maybe see if there's something we could do outside of this project we're talking about tonight to help some of that. But there's no way to take it down the road. not without in a really deep ditch.
Do they ever clean a ditch, put a pipe in a ditch where the little hill is? I can't visualize the hill, but I'm sure it's there.
It's about 4 feet from this. It'd be about a 4 feet cut from what they have now. And the problem is the fence. There's a livestock fence there.
Right
And so
next to the road.
Yeah, and you couldn't get, I mean, without, you can always do it, but within the space that's there now, it would be very difficult.
Questions for staff? At this time, we'll conduct our public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this zoning request will have the opportunity to do so. If the applicant is here, we would like for them to come forward and make their statement, or if need be.
Hi, good evening. It's Cherie Akers with Huddleston Steel. We represent the property owner. And just to reiterate, we were here before you on the 9th meeting, and we do concur with both Doug and Mr. Hill. And we understand our obligation to meet our drainage requirements, our stormwater quality requirements, and we will do so and demonstrate that at site plan approval. And we have reduced the property down to only rezoning the front half at your request from the last meeting. And I'll be happy to answer any other questions. And again, the property owner is here as well to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this zoning request? Please come forward. Evening.
We live at the house beside them. We've lived there almost 20 years. Far as the ditch you were asking about.
Name and address for the record, please.
198 Crescent Road.
Name.
Mark Battleball. And my wife, Debbie, is present. Far as the ditch, if you want to call it that, it's what was cut when the road was cut a number of years ago. So the amount of water that comes from across the road, I think we determined it was a 20-foot drop. So it's quite a bit of water that's heading our direction. Really, the big thing on me is the safety of where it's located. To me, it just doesn't seem the right place for a store.
Fact that it has been taken to half of the property, that makes a difference in the way we feel. One of our big concerns was the fact that we have, this is our home, and if businesses and properties and of course markets, there's going to be gasoline trucks in and out, and they sell beer and stuff like that, and this is where our children are, and that's been a huge concern for me. I just want to, we moved there because it was a rural area. We liked being in a rural area, and I think most everyone around us likes being in a rural area. So the congestion and everything that goes on with this is something that just has, it sort of hits us at home because we're right next door. Now, the fact that it has only half zoned makes a difference. It makes it more livable for us because it's not going to be right up next to our fence where our kids are. But we still feel that it will make a huge difference in, our property and the way we function and the traffic that goes in. I mean, I teach school and I have to get on 231 every morning, and it's always very congested, and I know traffic coming in and out of there, it's only going to make it 10 times worse. And there's lots of people who speed up. Well, we've had our mailbox knocked down 5 times already, where we are. And so there's a lot going on in that area anyway. So that was one of the things, the danger of what's going on was what he was trying to explain.
Well, what happened at C&E that bad day, I think everybody can remember the truck driver falling asleep and crashing to the store, to the pumps. There's no speed zone to slow traffic down to a reasonable speed where, like if you were coming into the Barfield area and you wanted to turn onto Tiger Mark, then it's more manageable. Here, you still have traffic that's going 70, 80 miles an hour. You got tractor trailers going to be pulled over on the side of the road to run in to get them a drink. I just don't think at this time that safety-wise that it's a good choice. I mean, we got stores in both directions that are mile and a half, away. As our community grows, then maybe so, but at this time, until safety can be, I don't know, I just think safety is the number one factor until it can be controlled. I just can't see it. So.
Well, we appreciate your consideration, and we've said pretty much the same thing we said last time, but it is our backyard, so it is very important to us. It hits us right at home, so that's how we feel, and we just wanted to put it forth to you. Okay, thank you.
Quick question. Your property is the one immediately to the west of the red boundary line right there?
Yes, sir. So the little pond, that's a joke. That doesn't do anything. The sinkhole, the group of trees in front of my house is what catches all of the rainwater. That's what makes his water go down, is the sinkhole on my property. Him filling that area without a permit bothers me. I don't see how he should be rewarded with a to commercialize the property when then he didn't go about it the right way. There is a way that we do things, and just taking amongst ourselves to fill in a flood zone is not, I just don't think it's a respectable thing to do, knowing that it was going to push water towards our home. But hope you take that into consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against this rezoning request? Anyone else? Seeing no one, yes, just in the nick of time.
Good evening. My name is Chris Bratcher. I am the realtor representing the property owner, Mr. Allen. He's in attendance here tonight. We'd just like to say that, that one thing, that this is a major 4-lane road that's designed to take the traffic that this small convenience store will handle. It's basically the same road that's being built where the Walmart's being built right up the street. And I know that if there are drainage issues in this area, that this property will address the drainage issues that it develops. It won't, I think the engineers won't allow any other additional drainage problems to be created. And along with that, they'll try to fix any other problems that are in the area that presently exist. This is not a big traffic generator. People are not going to drive across town to go to this convenience market. So it's going to serve the people who are already there and who need these services in that area. We feel like it would be a good development. It's going to be a lot of green space. The whole center of that property will maintain green space for field lines and for water. So we feel like it won't be any impact on any of the neighbors in the area. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bratcher. Anyone else? You sure can. Yeah, you do. Sorry. It's where the microphone is.
Referring to the Walmart, I believe that's more of in a controlled environment. And you talk about that this store would only generate neighbors. If you ever stood out on this road, it's like I-24 in the afternoons. You can't tell me that people that live in Shelbyville are not going to be pulling off to stop at this store. Still, you got people driving 70, 80 miles an hour down this road. So really, it's just not a controlled environment that you would want a market to be at. I just don't want to see nobody hurt, and that would be a setup for disaster.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Open for questions, comments, motions.
Doug, I'm confused by the storage facilities. I know on the big printout you gave us, they're set up one way. On the other, it looks like it came more recently, they're set up in like a horseshoe, and it looks like it goes all the way back to their neighbor's property, if I'm looking at it correctly.
Well, and let me explain. The one that I passed out that was provided to us from the applicant when they split the property, what they're showing on here, and Ms. Akers can certainly correct me if I'm wrong. Before we say anything, first of all, just understand this is conceptual. Okay, the only thing really that you're looking at tonight is the zoning of the property as far as where that proposed line is. Anything as far as building locations or orientation or anything like that, no, you can't make that subject to that. So this is a concept plan. So it may not look exactly what this looks like when or if development happens. From talking with the applicant, where the one I passed out that was on your tables today, where they're showing the mini warehouse facilities, that would actually be on the tract that's actually labeled 1, which would be adjacent to the Radabas property. Now that's the portion of the property that they're not asking for rezoning of tonight. They're asking for the front half. It's a little bit more than half, but the front half of the property. The remaining tract 1 would remain residentially zoned. In the future, they would have to come back through the process if they wanted to rezone that, and then probably rezone it probably something similar to what's already there. Now, mini warehouses are identified as a type of use that, although they're identified as, I believe, a general personal service, they're not permitted by right in the commercial services zone. They have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So even if they get zoning approval for it, they still have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for approval for the mini warehouse portion of that. But as this is shown on here, again, being conceptual, where the mini warehouses are shown on what I handed out for you today should actually be on the portion that says tract 1, which again is not part of the rezoning tonight. I hope that helped.
It does, yes, thank you.
Doug, so in other words, we're not talking about mini warehouses at all. They're off the plate tonight.
Correct. I mean, as far as where they're wanting to put it. Now, if they wanted, if
I
for
mean,
some
they
reason,
could, they could want to put anything on track one in the future, but as far as what we're talking about tonight, there's not any mini warehouses in play at all.
no, sir. Even if this goes through with just a half the property and they decided they wanted to do the front half of the property as the mini warehouses, they would have to still go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So, but from everything they've told us, that's going to be a future
And
time.
this whole westerly half of the zoned property is all going to be your detention area and field lines?
I believe what they were saying was, when you're looking at the sheet, this, of course, these are the areas where you're going to have the actual uses. This area here would be the fill lines and everything. That's where the existing house is. And then the remainder of the property at some point in the future would be where they were talking about putting the warehouse
So
facility.
not only the track one, which isn't being zoned tonight, which would be a whole nother conversation, but also this whole, basically half of the property where the field lines go would be even more buffer
Correct.
for the neighbors over there.
Correct. At this time,
Because
that's,
they couldn't put their field lines down that field area because there's not soil there for that. So
that is correct.
that would ensure more of a buffer for the neighbors.
Yes, sir.
Eric, Eric, are we looking at a turn lane off of Shelbyville Highway to this piece, to the entrance of this piece of property? And are we looking at the exit of this piece of property to come out on Crescent Road and not be able to exit on 231?
Depends on what they come back with for site plan, depending on what the use is. And we talked with the engineer today, just generally about traffic, and that's all going to depend on what they come back with. If it's a store, you know, we would look, and we'll probably require a traffic study and to look at it. And so, but we've started the conversation with the engineer to make sure that they understand that we're going to look very closely at this traffic. It being, like Mr. Radwell said, with you know his concerns, and so we will follow through with that. But it's hard to determine right now without knowing the exact use.
Also, at that time, we'd be looking at buffering between the two lots if we requested that, between lots 1 and lot 2. I know they own both of them, but
Yes, sir.
for the Radball to have more privacy, if it is approved, if we could require buffering between the two, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, lot 2 will be subject to all of our buffering, just like all other site plans will be.
Right, there are lands, just to kind of dovetail on what he was saying, they'd still be bound by all the criteria of the zoning ordinance as far as buffering, as far as light spillover, noise, all those performance items.
Doug, if we grant this zoning and for whatever reason they decide not to do a store, what are some of the other uses that could go in there under this zoning?
Well, the current makeup of the zoning ordinance, commercial services being one of 3 commercial zones that the county now has, it's kind of the middle of the road zone. It's not as restrictive as commercial neighborhood, but at the same time, it's not as permissive as commercial general, so it's kind of in the middle. Just looking at my zoning ordinance here, just some activities, and I'm just going to go through a couple. I'm not going to give you the whole list, but, you know, animal care, veterinary services is permitted right there. Let's see, consumer repair services could be used there. Entertainment and amusement services could be banks, financial consultative, administrative type services could be in that zone. Food service, drive-in, drive-through, those kind of things could be there. General personal services, any kind of retail, really general retail. There, it's a fairly wide open zone, but your more traffic intense uses, probably not so much. That'd be more of a commercial general.
Entertain a motion.
Well, they did exactly what we asked them to do, and it sounds like there are some safety nets in place in terms of traffic studies, drainage, that sort of thing, to minimize any negative impacts. So given that, based on what we're seeing tonight, I move for approval based on all staff comments.
Motion to approve. And a second. Other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Opposition? Motion carries. Item 6B, Stan and Terry Vaught. The item number is 14-A001. The location is 6854 Las Casas Pike. The county commissioner is Jack Black. The size of the site is approximately 5 acres. Tax map 61. The parcel number is 29.03. Existing zoning is RM, residential medium density. Proposed zoning is CS, commercial services. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this property is located along Las Casas Pike. It's on the south side of Las Casas Pike to the east of Canesville Pike and Lofton Road intersection and immediately adjacent to the Dollar General out in that area. According to information submitted by the applicant, and there's a revised letter on your tables as well as their original letter in your agenda packets, they would like to rezone the subject property in order to develop the site with retail uses and other commercial uses intended to serve the residents of that area. There's no concept plan with this particular item. The southern portion of the property has been identified as a possible location for mini warehouse type development. Again, this kind of goes back to the discussion we had a little earlier on the last application. Even if the whole tract is approved for rezoning and they decide they want to do the mini warehouse at some point in the future, they will have to come back to the Board of Zoning Appeals for approval of that use. The applicant, again, is aware of that. There was really no concept plan submitted with this. That being said, we do expect a single point of access onto Las Casas Pike. Parking requirements and design, as well as landscaping, as well as the other performance standards, would also have to be consistent with what is allowed in the zoning ordinance. This property is adjacent, again, to the Dollar General. It's across the street, also from property that's zoned commercial services. It's also, in the comprehensive plan, it's within the Las Casas rural node, which does recommend a mixture of uses and is along an arterial road. That being said, it is on kind of the periphery. It's about almost a mile out from the Las Casas center proper, if you will. Staff feels that the permissible uses in this zone are compatible with the existing uses along Las Casas Pike, and we do recommend approval. Just to give you an idea of the surrounding area, this is looking kind of to the, I guess, northeast, across the street, directly across the street. It's looking back down toward Las Casas Pike. That'd be going to the west. It's looking directly onto the property. This is looking to the southeast. That'd be the Dollar General right across the street, or next door, rather, excuse me. And looking down to the east on Las Casas Pike. The applicant is present, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? At this time, we'll conduct our public hearing. So the public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this zoning request, please come forward and be heard. The applicant here would like to make a statement.
Huddleston Steel. Mr. Demasi has presented the facts pretty clearly. Our client is requesting to rezone to commercial services in order to permit future development of some neighborhood commercial uses that could serve the immediate area, such as a convenience store, retail, and other type commercial uses. We feel as well that it's consistent and compatible with some other adjacent uses in the area, in particular the Dollar General that's located to the east of the property, and across the street there is also commercial uses. We'll be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Vaught is also here, the property owner, if you would like to answer any questions.
Any questions? Anyone else wishing to speak?
Members of the board, Jack Black, County Commissioner out in that area. I am up here not to speak against it or for it. I'm just to address some concerns that some folks had called me about. I don't know if Mr. Demasi mentioned convenience center right down the road from this. It's several Dollar General store and convenience center, and then I think it's a heat and air business right across the road. It's all clustered in right in that particular area, and I've had some calls about as far as a turning lane maybe being put in there. I don't know how that would be as far as if the state TDOT warranted that, or I don't know how y'all would go about it, but as far as the uses, everything contends to what's in there as far as the applicant, what he's addressed, and that's about all I got to say. I would like to see a turning lane put there as far as the safety out there. I'd answer his question. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Black. Anyone else?
My name's Stan Vaught. My wife and I do own the property. Members of the commission, I have sat in y'all's place before, and I understand the dilemma that you get put in. I can assure you this, that whatever we end up ultimately doing with that property, we will carry it on to the highest integrity for that community. I've lived there 52 years. That tells every one of you how old I am. I just had a birthday 3 weeks ago, so my wife, nor my brother, nor anybody that's related to me will allow me to do anything that would be a detriment to that community. We've worked with Huddleston Steel on it and looked at what the least impact would be to the community, and looked at several ideas about what we could do to, to provide some type of service to the Las Casas, Milton area. Those of you that are familiar with the area, you do see the commercial that is there related to it, the convenience center that is there, the school's just down the road from it, so it's become, an avenue there of a opportunity, I guess, for new commercial businesses there. But we'll work with and address anything in site plan about what we ultimately do with it, so we can assure you that it will be carried out to the highest integrity. Thank y'all for considering this.
Thank you.
Stan, I had a question, if you don't mind. I know it's right beside the Dollar General, so
right.
That kind of opens up the door for commercial over there. It's a personal note, I guess. Hate to see just an open door in commercial. What are you thinking about putting in there?
Well, I don't mind sharing with you.
Or you could be wanting to resell. I don't know. So.
No, actually, Steve, we looked at 2 or 3 things. Of course, most of y'all know that I've been in real estate and auction business for 25 years, have farmed in that community my entire life. And I'm not getting any younger. I don't know that we will continue to operate the size auction company that we have right now. We may end up opening up a real estate office in the house. We may look at some type of commercial retail on the front. Valley Growers was very popular there, the landscape place, the nursery stock, and they ultimately lost their lease and moved to town. We may look at something like that on front of the property. We've talked about many warehouses maybe on the back. Mr. Young that owns the adjacent property, I know all of his family members, and I bring this up now. We looked at limiting the border there, not disturbing anything within, whatever the setback requirements would be, to try to minimize impact on him or anybody else there. But he's probably my closest neighbor. So, a multitude of services that we could provide the community that makes sense. Maybe some boat storage. Center Hill's a popular destination as we in a society have made smaller building lots, then there's not a lot of times ample room if a family has a boat, and a lot of people don't want to keep them at the lake. We just looked at that. We've got to do some market analysis. You asked me what I'm going to do. I've told you how to build a watch. You asked me what time it was. I'm sorry, but just what's going on in the back of our mind right now.
Just to follow up to that, I had kind of the same question. I'm just never really comfortable with speculative rezoning when we don't know what the plan is. And so if you're not going to sell it and you're not going anywhere, why now until you have a plan? What's the need to do it now?
Well, I don't want to spend the money on a site plan not knowing that I have a chance of doing it. because there's a substantial investment going through the motions to be able to do that, to do the site plan, to do the market study, and ultimately come back with all of that.
So this would be a development you'd plan to proceed with in the next 12 months, or?
Hopefully, it may be 3 years, but hopefully in the next 12 months, as the economy continues to get better and we see what happens this year, yes, ma'am. Thank y'all.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this rezoning request? Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners, we're open for additional comments, questions, or motions.
Doug, talk me through the pros and cons of speculative rezoning, because I know it's kind of the chicken and the egg. It's like you need the zoning to do certain businesses, to attract certain businesses, but then we're reluctant to do it until we know what's going there. So just talk me through the pros and cons of that.
Well, as far as the pros, I think you kind of hit on it just while you were talking. If there's already land available out there that's zoned a certain way, developers, and this is probably more true, I'd say, for larger tracts. I know we ran into this with discussions on some property off Epps Mill Road that ultimately was withdrawn by the applicant. But a lot of developers who are coming in to an area, especially from out of town or out of state, are looking for areas that have property that's already zoned and ready to go in that sense. They don't have to spend the time and the money to try to have the property rezoned. If it's already there waiting for them, they know they can do what they want to with it. As far as the cons of that, under the current zoning we have, and I know that's been a concern that we've discussed on more than one occasion, even before we adopted the zoning ordinance that we have now. Under our older system of zoning, it was more specific to, if you wanted a particular use, you asked for the conditional use permit to that use. In my mind as a planner, that's inflexible, for those situations where somebody has a piece of property that has a furniture store and they want to go in there and put a clothing store. They have to go back through the process to change it to a particular use that really doesn't have much more impact than what was already there. Now, under our current zoning system, it opens the door to a lot more uses. I take Mr. Vaught at his word that what he's going to do. I have no doubt that he's going to do that. But there may be situations out there where somebody buys property, gets it zoned, then sells it to somebody else who has absolutely no intent to do what they said they're going to do. So that is a con in that regard, because they're able to do whatever the zoning ordinance allows them to do. Again, I don't think Mr. Vaught, that's his plan. I don't have no doubt that he's not going to do that. So, but just pros and cons generally, that kind of gives you just a quick and dirty of it, if you will.
Doug, in essence, was the last one not speculative rezoning? Because it was not tied to a convenience store. They just talked about a convenience store.
That's correct. I mean,
So
really,
it's the exact same situation.
right, when you combine the two, I mean, they had a little more, on the last application, they had a little bit more concrete plan as to what they wanted to do. But again, as we talked about before, that is a conceptual plan. Nothing binds them to that. So
they could turn completely around as soon as
if the zoning allows it,
something else.
that is correct. So the applications really, in and of themselves, aren't a whole lot different.
The turning lane that Mr. Black referred to, that would come back just like the other one, that site plan.
Just like the last one, we would, whatever use they decide to do, we'll do a required traffic study, look at that, and work with TDOT on that. Yeah.
But tonight, we could not designate that.
It would be hard to, not knowing the use,
Well, even if I can just kind of address that, even if you did know the use, you couldn't condition it tonight anyway. Again, the zoning system we're under now wouldn't allow for that. That would have to be something, which is why we put in the language in the ordinance that we did regarding traffic studies and all that at the site plan phase. So there's another crack at it at that point.
Doug,
Go
ahead.
Have you received any calls on this?
On this one, I personally have not talked to anybody about it that I can recall. I do know that our office has received a number of calls about it. I think the last number I got was about 4. There was one person who was in opposition, and the other 3 were informational in nature.
I wanted to ask Doug, when the Dollar General came in, did we not do a request to the state for a turn lane there for the Dollar General, or do we not?
On that one, I believe we didn't. I think there was a lot of talk about it, but ultimately it was decided that if the state felt they needed one, they would make them put one in. So as I recall, there was not a specific condition placed on the approval for a turn lane to be placed.
All right, and we've talked about that a little bit, where this situation may come into effect of you've got 2 or 3 commercial spots that come in, and then all of a sudden here's one more, you know, that may be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I doubt it, but I mean, if, you know, okay, say a hospital went in there, okay, well, we're going to have a turn lane, you know what I'm saying? So, not that that's what it is. I'm just saying, you know, if something big went in or whatever, then you're probably it's going to require a turn lane. So, okay, that changes everything. How far does the turn lane go? Probably just for that piece of property.
It would probably serve that property.
Serve
yes.
that one. So next door where the Dollar General, it wouldn't affect it at all, or?
I think at that point, and Mr. Hill can certainly chime in here if I'm saying something out of character or out of line. Any traffic study that was done, of course, this being on a state road, we would have to work with the state on that. And the state could look at it and say, okay, yeah, we feel that this needs one or doesn't, but hey, you know, we probably need to extend it a little further out, and we would have to work with the state on that.
It's pretty site specific though. Like in this case, I mean, it's just talk, but I mean, you know, you have tapers on a turn lane, you know, where it all comes back together. Well, you wouldn't want to put that right in front of the Dollar General. So a lot of times, if there's a cluster, it's probably going to incorporate a lot of them. So, and it's all site specific, but it's not like, it's not just black and white where the last one that comes in that puts them over the threshold that they're going to put a turn lane in and it's just going to stop just for that one. We would look at it dynamic, look at the whole situation. And we work with TDOT a lot more now than we have in years past, and really trying to build a relationship and kind of understand what they're looking at and us kind of be a unified front. And so they've been really good to work with and look at these, like a scenario like this in the future. I feel good about what we could do with that.
That being said, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion to approve, but also with any other comments that's been made or requested from the planning department. But I would like to ask that we request for the state to look at it out there and see what they say. Of course, we don't know exactly what the use is at this point, and it might be more appropriate when we get the use at that time. So, I mean, I yield to your direction on that, but I would think at that time they'll look at the whole area right there and see what's going on with it.
Motion to approve and a second. Other questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? That motion carries. Thank you. Item number 7 is staff reports and other business. It's time for our annual nominating committee and budget committees. Doug, I think you have some information for us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. It is that time of year again where we nominate the nominating committee. The nominating committee is responsible for, nominating chair and vice chair. That'll be done at the next planning commission meeting, which will be on the 27th. It's our daytime meeting over in our planning department mezzanine. We've contacted and received a willingness to serve from Ms. Rhonda Allen, Mr. Pettis Reed, and Ms. Veronica Buchanan. And for our budget committee, we've asked and again received affirmative approval, if you will, from the following folks: Mike Cush, Jim Averwater, Pettis Reed, Will Jordan, and Chip Pinion. And the chairman, Mr. Phillips, is also included on that as ex officio. So if we could just have a motion to that effect, that'll establish the committees.
Motion and a second to approve both committees. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Anything else, Doug?
That's all I have here, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Mike Cooch. I think Mike has an announcement.
Hello, everybody. Mike Cush, Planning Commissioner. My day job involves infrastructure. specifically civil engineered solutions to sanitary sewers, drainage, stormwater quality, things that we talk about all the time. And because of that and what I do, I'm also a member of a variety of different professional societies. One of them is the Tennessee Association of American Public Works, APWA. These are folks that help cities, municipalities, counties with services that they provide as it relates to infrastructure and solid waste. I'm happy to report that the Tennessee Society and our American Public Works Association recently recognized one of our own. Mr. Eric Hill was recognized as and given an award, and he is the 2013 or 14? 13, okay. He's the Young Public Works Leader of the Year. So please welcome and join me in congratulating.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Great job, Eric. We're proud of you. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 27th, 9 a.m. in the planning office. Any other business? Happy New Year. We're adjourned.